So with deviants, those are deviants, and they were dealt with properly. And they failed. And we are very happy that they failed. And they will never succeed again. This was their last at misbehavior. They will never get another chance again. Because now they know what happens when they try to behave in a certain manner. And I'm sure there will be a good reason to free them up soon afterwards, because there's no show to disturb them. The show, what they wanted to disturb is over, so there is absolutely no reason to keep them at the state's expense in jail after failing. You know, we reward their failure by giving them their freedom. But there's nothing to disturb anymore. So there will be, I'm sure, in the wisdom of the Minister of Home Affairs and the Minister of Justice, there will be a good reason to make sure that they are free. Yes, why keep them in jail when they failed? You don't punish failure by rewarding it with incarceration. No. With continued incarceration. You don't reward failure by rewarding it, by according it continued incarceration. There's no reason to do it. The foreigners are gone for whom they were trying to misbehave. There's nobody to watch them. There are no more cameras from you guys to cover them. So they will probably be freed, and there will be nobody at the jail. There will be no camera that day as they are coming out of jail. But if they were heads of states, cameras would have been taken away from Southampton to a prison. No, it won't happen this time. Any other question? Thank you so much.
Conference on such short notice.
Yes,
allow me to hand you over to our Secretary for Information and Publicity, Comrade Ambassador Mchangwa, for today's press conference. Thank you.
Thank you once again, members of the Fourth Estate, for coming to Zanu PF headquarters, the home of the permanent Zimbabwe revolution. I would want to start by thanking you for such a wide, deep, and sympathetic coverage of the SADC summit. You went all out to make sure that the events concerning this summit got the due publicity for the domestic audience, for the sub-regional audience, as well as for the global audience. You did a good job. It was a patriotic duty on your side, but we went beyond the call of patriotism. And we are very grateful as Zanu PF that you could discharge your job in the manner which you did. We are here to congratulate, as the part of the permanent Zimbabwe revolution, President E.D. Mnangagwa for a very successful hosting of this summit. More important, for him assuming the chairmanship of SADC, an important sub-regional organization which is key to the destiny of Zimbabwe in the past, in the present, and in the future. This summit was well organized. We saw virtually all the heads of states, in fact, all the heads of states attending in one form or the other. And the camaraderie, the friendship, the bonds between the various countries of SADC were quite evident in the proceedings of the summit. President Mnangagwa came out with flying colors to show that not only does he deserve to be chairman, that the Zimbabwean people are up to assuming their role for the progress of the regional organization which is so important to them. Congratulations, Dr. Comrade President Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, for doing Zanu PF proud by showing that you are in a class of your own as the President of Zimbabwe, as a statesman of the region, and as a representative of Pan-Africanism, but more important, as somebody who is showing that Africa can become part of the global community through a concerted effort at industrialization, because industrialization is the measure of modernization. And without industrialization, you cannot become a full global citizen. There was Zimbabwe putting its best foot forward at this summit. Well done, President Comrade Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. You are the right choice for Zanu PF. You are the proper candidate for presenting the tenets of the Zimbabwe Revolution, and you are discharging your role in a sterling manner. What is remarkable is that people could see the palpable results of Zimbabwe making progress. The visitors who came from all over the region, they could see the results of what his leadership is doing within Zimbabwe to make this country move from A to B, so that we can become a modern country with competent industries which can become exporters for the global community. So President Mnangagwa, well done for a good job. We also want to pay gratitude, be very thankful to the outgoing chairman of SADC, President Lorenzo of Angola. He spent two days here in Zimbabwe, even considering the busy schedule of a head of state. He spent 2 days here following the proceedings, but more important, giving a comprehensive report of what SADC has been doing under the year of his chairmanship. We are also very thankful of President Hichilema of Zambia. He was present as the chairman of the organ of security and defense of SADC, virtual though it was, and he gave a report about the progress of defense and security matters within SADC. He gave a report. And most important, he put to rest any aspersions about the electoral processes in SADC, including that of Zimbabwe. He gave a report which says SADC has done well, and the transitions from one administration to another after elections had been peaceful, and that generally SADC had performed well in its elections. So for those detractors and the people they handle in the opposition of Zimbabwe CCC, it was zero gain. There was Zambia debunking some of the aspersions which had been made about the elections in Zimbabwe, clearly putting aside the report which the CCC and the detractors have been latching on to about elections in Zimbabwe. So that matter has been put to rest. Though he may not have been here in person, he was there because it's modern technology. Heads of states have got different obligations at any particular time. You cannot, of necessity or otherwise, demand of them to be always present at a certain function. But Zambia was represented in full force with the foreign minister here and a powerful delegation from Zambia making contributions in all aspects of the deliberations of the SADC summit, because there's so much which we share with Zambia. And for those who want a historical perspective, Zanu PF was born in Zimbabwe, but it survived because of Zambia as a national liberation movement. We owe our existence as Zanu PF to the support of Zambia. More than that, the modern state of Zimbabwe owes to the support of Zambia. So beyond our bonds as neighbors, as people with a past history together, we developed these very, very powerful bonds between ZANU-PF and the people of Zambia. There is so much which ZANU-PF can talk about with Zambia, and there is very little which the CCC opposition can talk about in terms of their relations with Zambia, beyond waffling about nebulous things about elections and democracy at the behest of outsiders. And remember, the democracy, the free speech which the CCCs want to champion, it is a product of the collaboration between ZANU-PF and the Zambian people. It is not a product of Western countries. We wrestled it out of Western countries who are our colonial partners, our colonial occupiers. We wrestled it out of them. They didn't give it voluntarily to us. We paid the ultimate sacrifice for it. So for CCC to try to say they have a common cause with Zambia about Zimbabwe and on the issues of democracy and free speech and all in the elections, it's a lot of humbug. You know, it's a lot of hogwash on their part. We are the ones who have a history with Zambia on those issues. And the relationship between CCC and what they would expect of Zambia is a mere wish on their part. Whereas on our part, the relationship between ZANU-PF and Zambia, it's a history of achievements over the last 6 decades in the anti-colonial struggle. And that relationship is enduring, and that was what the Zambian delegation was talking about at the SADC summit. There was anywhere where Zambia came short in terms of their participation and contributions to the proceedings of SADC. They were on par with all the other 16 states which were in Zimbabwe on this occasion. Why am I dwelling on this point? I want to put to rest that there can be anything which can be put as a wedge between Zambia and Zimbabwe by the John Come-Latelys, who are the CCC, and their Brandeis Foundation. No, you won't pull it off. The bonds are too great, and as I talk, trucks carrying copper and cobalt from Zambia continue to pass through Zimbabwe on their way to the coast, not affected by the mouthings of the CCC. The bonds of, what I'm saying, the bonds of trade, the bonds which make us cooperate, they are too strong to be played around by the CCCs. I want to thank the people of Zimbabwe. They had already showed their mettle during the Heroes Day and Defense Forces Day celebration. Those who were watching the proceedings in Surufaro Stadium, you could almost touch the communion between the president and the crowd. You know, the President Mnangagwa has hit the right chord with the people of Zimbabwe. And it was evident in Rufaro Stadium, and it was full for people from the high density Mbare, who are again, which is incidentally the original homo of modern African nationalism in Zimbabwe. It's Mbare. And there they were, the crowds of Mbare, ululating and responding to the chants of the president and his slogans as he gave the speech. They were not all of them ZANU-PF members, but they were just patriotic Zimbabweans suffering the fact that they now were celebrating their heroes who had sacrificed. And a lot of the heroes came from Mbare. Young people from Mbare made a decisive contribution to the liberation struggle. They were the ones who eventually showed their mettle by bombing Smithy's and petrol tanks in 1978. So Mbare is patriotic. Mbare is Pan-African. Mbare loves and in President Zimbabwe, in President Mnangagwa, they see their aspirations, they see their prospects of prosperity for Zimbabwe being delivered. And this is the most advanced population of Zimbabwe because of urban exposure. And they were there in full force during the Heroes and Defense celebrations to be on the same page with their president. And it is that mood which built up all to the way to the SADC summit. And that's why calls by those who wanted a side show of demonstrations and this, they came to naught. Zero. There was nothing on the part of CCC and their attempts at having a detractive side show. Nobody listened to them. Nobody demonstrated. Nobody wanted to bother with those people who don't want anything about Zimbabwe to be shown. They don't want Zimbabwe to be shown in good light. This was a show for Zimbabwe, for the regional community, for the world. It went on very well, and it sidelined detractors who are championed by the Brandeis Foundation. You know, the Brandeis Foundation belongs to post-colonial whites, those who profited most from the colonial project. Anglo-American, the company which used to run Southern Africa, it inherited from Cecil John Rhodes. It cannot get over the fact that Rhodes used to be actually the name giver to Zimbabwe as Rhodesia. They have not, on this SADC summit, there just was zero response from the people of Zimbabwe. They wanted to put a good show for the region, they wanted to put a good show for the world, and they lived up to the billing. I also want to thank the government of Zimbabwe for going all out to spruce up the image of our capital in particular. People from all over the region who had been accustomed to a Zimbabwe which laments about sanctions and the impact of the Western economic isolation of the past 2 decades, they were surprised to see so much progress being done by Zimbabwe, notwithstanding those sanctions. And Harare put on its best show. You know, the roads, the city was clean. All the garbage which we normally associate with the city because of the misrule of the past 2 decades of CCC, MTC, they were not there. The city was cleaned up. The city is looking spick and span for the guests who came from all over. It was a good show on the part of the government to move in and clean up the city, but also to put in new infrastructure to make sure that Zimbabweans put on their best dress forward for this particular occasion. Well done, the people of Zimbabwe, the people of Harare. Well done, the government of Zimbabwe, for the various government departments which went all out to make sure that we put the best possible image for Zimbabwe during SADC. The other thing which is remarkable was the industrial week leading to SADC. People were here for a week discussing issues about how we industrialize, but they could also see in practical, with their own eyes, what the country was doing. You know, they visited the various new industries in mining and in manufacturing, which saw the country making strides. We are attracting global class capital to be applied to the world-class Zimbabwean resources. And when you get world-class capital, you also get world-class technology. You get world-class management expertise. But you also produce world-class goods made in Zimbabwe for the global market. They could see this progress which Zimbabwe is making. Varun Zimbabwe is now taking over Pepsi franchise in South Africa, launched from Zimbabwe. Why? Because of the open for business mantra of President E.D. Mnangagwa. We are now, the government of the department, the industrialists of South Africa are flocking to Manize. Why? Because we'll be producing world-class steel for the global market, for the regional market. So the downstream industries of the South African car industry and various other steel fabricators, they are now coming to Zimbabwe. They are paying. Zimbabwe is going to become the maker of steel making in the region. Good world-class product, world-class steel, made with the best technology and produced by the most organized and competent labor force on the market in Zimbabwe today, which is our young workforce at Manize. They could see what we are doing with our lithium sector. And while we are having the top billionaires of the world come to Zimbabwe to apply their technology so that Zimbabwe can beneficiate lithium, and we mark our position in the emerging mobility from new energy for new energy electric vehicles from fossil fuels. They could see this progress which Zimbabwe is making during SADC. So the talk about industrialization was not just mere waffling, pub waffling. No, the heads of state, President Mnangagwa, had think concrete templates, concrete examples, concrete case studies of Zimbabwe delivering on its mantra of industrializing. So we are SADC in the coming year. We will take the envelope of regional industrialization a step further, but we are also coalescing with our fellow states so that we come together, because economies of scale matter. When we are 200 million consumers in SADC, we go to investors together as a regional bloc. We attract capital, which is enthused by the economies of scale, which are working on the best offering of resources, which any regional bloc has. You see, SADC has the advantage that beyond just being neighbors, beyond being friends, beyond being freedom fighters together, we acquired a political soul. We think alike. And you could see the camaraderie among the presidents. There was absolutely no rancor among the heads of states who were here. You could touch the feeling of bondage, of bonding between them. The bonds were very strong between the heads of states. You don't find it out in many other regional organizations in the world. Only in SADC. Because as we fought together in the trenches, anti-colonial, anti-racism, anti-apartheid, we bonded together because we're dying together for the freedoms which we have today. So you could see this is the glue which makes SADC stick together, and it marginalized those negative geopolitical tendencies which one are always used to see in Africa divided to be ruled. You couldn't see that at the SADC meeting. There was no Africa to be divided and ruled this time. That's why I was at pains to emphasize the support, the presence, and the positive participation of even Zambia, simply to dispel the notions which may come from certain detractors and the opposition that something can waylay SADC's cooperative approach, a collaborative approach to the agenda of industrialization. So this, by and large, is what we are very happy with, but we are also happy that important financial partners were there. The African Development Bank was there. The Africa Free Trade Bloc, PTA now, former PTA was there. We also had BADEA, the Arab Bank for African Development. You know that because of the history of fossil fuels, which drive all the vehicle mobility today, Saudi Arabia is an important source of capital. You know, they have a sovereign wealth fund of trillions of dollars. So does the UAE, the Emirates. They do have, so does Kuwait. These are countries with surplus capital. They are the main shareholders in the BADEA, in the African Development Bank. So as we look for infrastructure, for railways, as we look for water, as we look for telecommunications, as we look for ports, rebuilding the ports in Mozambique, even building new ones, we need capital, dollops of capital on a scale unprecedented. And it was nice that BADEA was there to sell SADC as a destination of choice for the excess capital which exists in the Arab world because of their dominance in the current fossil fuel mobility. But there were also a lot of companies in the new energy sector. You know, who were there, who were seeing, who were hearing the word about what SADC can do. We also want to thank the Secretary, Dr. Magosi from Botswana. He pulled off a fantastic show, corralling all these heads of states into a common position. We have got a very competent, very committed regionalist handling the affairs of SADC, and we are sure that him and our chairman, the incoming, the current chairman, they assume the chairman was Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, they are going to have this strong bonding to make sure that this agenda moves forward. Dr. Magosi, he did a fantastic job. I also want to thank INSTAC, the museum, the Institute of African Liberation. They put a good show yesterday, and for memory's sake, they went to look for the drums of our Douglas Wambe, the ones which they used, which you grew up listening at ZBC. You remember Jerusalem Mchongoyo from Mrewa is a World Heritage recognized property of Zimbabwe. So they went and dug this, and to grace this occasion to celebrate Africa's liberation. It's nice that some of the best aspects of Zimbabwean culture were there. We also want to thank Honorable Manduwanza, who used to be, he's an honorable MP. He did a fantastic job as the events director. This was Zimbabwe's best, coming forward to project the image of this summit. All in all, I'm just saying that the various talents of Zimbabwe were there, available for the world to see and to savor as we presented this occasion of pinnacle diplomacy in the sub-region to the world. Thank you so much. And Geo Pomona, they also showed the world the advances which Zimbabwe has made in terms of mastering modern waste recovery and converting it to energy. These are strides which Zimbabwe is making. Some of the best technologies are being harnessed by the Zimbabwe government. All in all, Zimbabwe putting its best show during summit. This was all what it was about. We came out with flying colors, and the party of the Permanent Zimbabwe Revolution is very happy that as we continue to accord the support to our President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, he is never disappointing in scaling one template of achievement after another to make Zimbabwe take its rightful place as a Pan-Africanist progressive nation. There is a can-do spirit among Zimbabweans now. There is an identification with the progress which this country has made. There is a new confidence about being Zimbabwean. You touch it, the diaspora, they are happy about their country. The diaspora, even the white diaspora, is coming back in numbers back to Zimbabwe. This is a good indication of the fact that we are building a collective nation. And we also have increasingly full flights, even in business class, as airlines bring in investors from all over the world, including Americans. We're happy the other day, the American ambassador, the new American ambassador, was saying that she is here to make sure that American businessmen come to Zimbabwe and invest. We want them to join the Indians, we want them to join the South Africans, to join the Chinese, all of them to come to Zimbabwe and put their capital so that it can earn quick profits from the hard work of the most organized and disciplined and educated labor force on the African continent, which is Zimbabwe is offering. So it was a summit to show Zimbabwe at its best. I think we can hit our chests that we pretty much succeeded to put a good show. And once again, congratulations to President Idi Mnangagwa for all the work which he did on this particular occasion. I thank you.
Do we have any questions?
We have worked hard as the Second Republic to change the image of Zimbabwe. In a short 5 years, we have turned from being a pariah nation, constantly being pilloried by the West, constantly being paraded by detractors and a sponsored opposition, as an imminent failed state of Africa. This is what has been the image which was being peddled, and the advent of Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa as the President of the Republic. He has reversed that, he has turned over completely, he has flipped over to a new page. And it's showing, you know, in all aspects of Zimbabwean socio-economic endeavors. I've just cited what we are doing with the mining sector, growing it so rapidly and becoming a destination of choice as the world moves away from fossil fuels to new energy electric vehicles. We are attracting capital about decarbonization of the world so that we have a more friendly climate for the sustenance of humanity. Zimbabwe has carved out a place among those nations which are contributing to this process. Why? Because of the current policy of President E.D. Mnangagwa. But beyond that, he is also attracting beneficiation industries. We are a landlocked country, Zimbabwe. If we try to export raw materials, we can't compete with Australia, we can't compete with Brazil, we can't compete with Indonesia, we can't compete with South Africa, because we don't have a coastline. But what have we done? We have turned what would have been a disadvantage into an opportunity by making sure that we attract capital into Zimbabwe to go to the next stage of mineral production to actual beneficiation. And it is a good thing that the policies are attracting world-class capital in that endeavor. And world-class capital brings with it world-class technology. And world-class technology brings with it world-class expertise. And what is the end product? When you then combine it, all that capital with the most organized and disciplined and educated labor force on the African continent, you turn capital into profit very quickly. And word quickly spreads among businessmen that if you want to become a successful businessman, go to Zimbabwe. And this is exactly what is happening. The message of President E.D. Mnangagwa that Zimbabwe is open for business, that we are an enemy to none and friend to all, and that we want to engage with the world capital markets regardless of their geographical, ethnic, or religious, or whatever leaning. Capital to us is the same. The message is getting through. That's why it is also freeing up the energy of the Zimbabwe people. And with it, it is now generating that can-do spirit, that new confidence which you find among Zimbabweans. There's a new step among Zimbabweans as they move along, because they can see that they are moving in the right direction. This is what the Second Republic has done. This is what Comrade Emerson Mnangagwa has done. And by hosting SADC in ways which nobody ever expected, defying those who thought Zimbabwe should be ostracized by its regional group, and turning that defiance into a successful show, we are saying this is the stuff which Zimbabweans are made of. He is making sure that the real metal of Zimbabweans come out to the pride of our neighbors and to the pride of our diaspora, but to the admiration of our friends from abroad, those who have always wished Africa well. But most important, impressing businessmen from abroad that if you go to Zimbabwe, you will make money and you will succeed as a businessman. I think this augurs well for the industrialization policy of SADC. I think the best way we want to celebrate what President Mnangagwa has achieved and his assumption of the summit of chairmanship is to go and work even harder to fulfill his industrialization mantra. We want more capital to be applied to Zimbabwe, domestic capital, because we also have domestic capital, and it is a very good thing that capital which used to be idle in Zimbabwe and used for speculative purposes is now coming back to be applied into the economy, because of one single achievement by the president, which is current stability and the ZIG. And remember where the ZIG comes from. We want to pay homage to the 1.2 to 1.5 million young people who are digging gold every day. They are the ones who have made the ZIG possible. And you can see from the recent statistics from Fidelity that the marginal increase of gold production by the SME sector is moving faster than even from the industrial, from the big players. The big players who are, Blanket Mine, who are PLS Mine, who are, Delagio, they are being outstripped by production from the SME sector. So if the more we produce gold, the more the ZIG becomes stable. But what does it do? It also brings stability, prosperity to the people of Zimbabwe, because 1.3 million young miners at 3% per family before, it means gold is already touching about 4 to 5 million Zimbabweans every day as those young people. This is when we said we recover our resources, the land, this is the end product. Young people digging gold and giving Zimbabwe a current stability which not even America can challenge. Because gold is better money than US dollar. It has been around before America was born. Gold is 5,000 years old as money. The US gold dollar is only 70 years as a world currency. Gold has always been the money of the world, and Zimbabwe has it. Beyond exporting to make money, foreign currency, we dig money in Zimbabwe. And that's what those young people are doing. So these are the things which we want, because once you have a stable currency, it means we make it, it's another incentive for industrialists to come to Zimbabwe. Beyond the organized labor, the disciplined labor, they also know that the country has got a stable currency which is supported by gold. If they invest, their money will not be eaten by inflation. So these are the positives which Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa's administration is doing. We want Zimbabweans to celebrate by sweating more of their labor so that we bring more prosperity to our people. That's why we want that can-do spirit, that confident spirit, to continue to be cultivated among Zimbabweans. And you do it, you want to celebrate by hard work, in short. We will celebrate the SADC summit by hard work, and when it is hard work, it means we propel the agenda of industrialization forward. There is absolutely no reason why we should stake out our position in the global market with Zimbabwe producing world-class goods, which you can find in any marketplace on the global stage. The moment you begin to see made in Zimbabwe products in foreign markets, you begin to feel proud about yourself. I mean, the Japanese never fail to feel proud about themselves when they see all the Toyotas in other countries. So we need to do equally the same. There's nothing which can stop the future vehicles being given mobility by made in Zimbabwe lithium batteries. Nothing to stop that. And then you feel proud when you're in Bolivia. You see a car driving. You say, can I open the boot? You see a battery made in Zimbabwe. This is a feel-good factor, isn't it? This is the way we want to celebrate the SADC summit henceforth. More hard work, more attraction of capital, and more advertising of Zimbabwe's good resource base to competent capital from all over the world. And you see, having a Hyatt Regency hotel in Harare, the heads of states were, this is the best holiday, and this is the best hotel brand in the world, the Hyatt Regency. Now you can say anywhere in the world, the best brand in hotels is also available in my country. This is what President Mnangagwa is doing. When you are measured by the successful brands of the world being present in your country, we have arrived. And this is what President Mnangagwa is doing. He's making us feel that we have arrived. And that more feeling of we've arrived is what we want to celebrate by working hard during his chairman of SADC and beyond. Well, the most important thing is the positivity. You know, a positive image. Remember, we have suffered so much in the last 2 decades from being considered a pariah nation, a nation which is a candidate for regime change, a nation which is a candidate for political turmoil, a nation which will only get salvation when puppets of the post-colonial order who exists in the formation of the Triple C amongst our populace have taken over. We're being told that only can, once the infantile God is in it, Chamisa is in power, then Zimbabwe can have salvation. This is the image which everybody, and then, you know, when you were in abroad, you couldn't even want to have a Zimbabwe passport because you were associated with the pariah, with the turmoil, with the all sorts of accusations. Now, with President Mnangagwa being the ultimate representative of a collective of 16 nations, which are some of the most endowed in the world in terms of resources, it's a good thing. Who is their chairman? The President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Which country is leading SADC? Zimbabwe. It sells, that's on its own sells. And when it sells, what does it do? It makes people with money, with capital, want to come to Zimbabwe to see. This is what, so the image of a country matters in terms of a global village. If you show the good part of you, you get the reward of the world thinking positively about you. And when you do so, capital in particular, because you can't modernize, this is the age of capital. You can't modernize without capital. You saw the failures of the previous policy of the G40s and industrialization. Vanhu showed the goods which nobody wanted to buy. Now it's different image. We're going to produce world-class goods made in Zimbabwe for the global market. So that creates, you know, the feeling of success. And when you create a feeling of success, you breed more success. You understand? So we want to build on the symmetry, the success of the symmetry, to continue to project Zimbabwe as a country which everybody wants to be associated with. Tourism, business people, technology transfer, innovation, all these things, you know, you'll be surprised. There are a lot of companies from India, from China, even from America, who are now looking at the brain power of Zimbabwe in terms of artificial intelligence. I have been approached myself by guys from Silicon Valley who say, if we come to Zimbabwe, we apply our artificial intelligence technology, we get better results because it's an educated population. These are good things. So we may become actually Africa's power in terms of artificial intelligence. And that comes out well when people are reading good things about your country. How do they become a chairman of SADC? Who is this SADC? Who is this man who is making waves in terms of global businesses? Who is attracting billionaires to apply money to Zimbabwe? Who is making sure that the Mozambican ports get new investment after being abandoned for 60 years? You know, we are reviving the ports of Beira. You know, we are reviving, going to build, Mozambique is going to have new ports because it is our shortest destination to the sea. That's only possible because of what Zimbabwe is doing. So we're getting the best companies in logistics coming to Zimbabwe. The Dubai ports, they are here in Zimbabwe now, talking of moving goods, becoming a more efficient land transportation link between the copper-rich Zambia, the cobalt-rich DRC, and the logistics in Mozambique. This is what we are doing. And it has a huge impact on employment. You know, now, 10,000 young people will soon be employed in Manise, producing all sorts of widgets from steel, selling them to Toyota, selling them to Mercedes-Benz. This is a good thing. So this is what we want to do, celebrating by working hard, and it comes from a positive image about your country. You know, it's a feel-good. What is advertising all about? It's about showing your best attributes. And that's what we are showing today. And that's what more of that will be coming out of this summit. And a good image results in a feel-good factor in every aspect of human socio-economic development. It's a feel-good factor. It makes everybody want to identify with Zimbabwe, and that's a good thing. Any other question? Please. You see, every country, the most important aspect of a country, if you are a disorderly country, you will not make progress. And when everybody else is trying to put on a good show on a particular occasion, you decide to become a champion of disorder. You are a deviant. So if you are a deviant, you've got to be dealt with in the commensurate way, which is to put you in jail so that you don't create a side show which takes attention away from the event. And I'm very happy I actually overlooked a pam-pam to our security sector to making sure that there was order during this occasion. Those who wanted to be flies in the ointment, the ointment was well protected, and the flies were shunted away. So now they can sulk because they failed in their show. Why? Because our security and defense sector lived up to the billing. So this is another thank you, which I had overlooked, and thank you for reminding me. They got the right medicine. They were put away because they wanted to create. Look at what's happening in the UK. Look at the demonstrations in Britain now. Does that today? It's not good. And what is the British police doing about it? Hey, they are moving forcefully in much more ways than we could ever do. Hey, look at the disorder which happened in Kenya. I mean, there may have been reasons for that. Can you imagine that mayhem on the occasion of an important summit like this? So the show, the cameras, your cameras, they move away from the event at the new parliament buildings in Mount Hampden, showing this majestic building to the world, and the graceful heads of states being made anxious about their presence in Zimbabwe because of tumultuous crowds organized by deviant Zimbabweans. No, we couldn't allow that. It was not allowed. And I'm very happy about that the security sector lived up to its billing. We are talking of generally people who are given to disorder, people who never want to see their country cast in a good light. If you don't want your country cast in a good light, so chawakagarira panyika chi kungosvora chete zvinhu zvekumba kwamai yako, ukaenda kunonwa doro nevamwe, ukanotamba nevamwe, amai vangu havaiti, baba vangu havaiti, vaning'ina vangu havaiti. Chinyi ichocho? Imbowaniwo chaunofarirawo. This was a show for Zimbabweans in the sub-region. Even if you are the opposition, musiwo womboitowo munhu kwaye. But no, they just work for the interests of those who never want to see Africa in a good light. So with deviants, those are deviants, and they were dealt with properly. And they failed. And we are very happy that they failed. And they will never succeed again. This was their last at misbehavior. They will never get another chance again. Because now they know what happens when they try to behave in a certain manner. And I'm sure there will be a good reason to free them up soon afterwards, because there's no show to disturb them. The show, what they wanted to disturb is over. So there is absolutely no reason to keep them at the state's expense in jail after failing. You know, we reward their failure by giving them their freedom. But there's nothing to disturb anymore. Any other question? So there will be, I'm sure, in the wisdom of the Minister of Home Affairs and the Minister of Justice, there will be a good reason to make sure that they are free. Yes, why keep them in jail when they failed? You don't punish failure by rewarding it with incarceration. No. With continued incarceration. You don't reward failure by rewarding it, by according it continued incarceration. There's no reason to do it. The foreigners are gone for whom they were trying to misbehave. There's nobody to watch them. There are no more cameras from you guys to cover them. So they will probably be freed and there will be nobody at the jail. There will be no camera that day as they are coming out of jail. But if they were heads of states, the cameras would have been taken away from Southampton to a prison. No, it won't happen this time. Tongowaregera wongobuda wongotunhaira wavo vachienda kwavanoenda. Any other question? Thank you so much.